Okay, we are back again, and we have hopefully solved some of our technical issues. But other than that, I hope everyone had a good 15 minutes break because we are back with more content. All right. So for those who have been waiting, we are currently going to be going through our ebooks. Okay, so you can see here we actually have quite an array of ebooks, okay, including that for primary school students and those for O-level students, okay. So definitely depending on where you're studying, what you're studying, all right. Okay, can I have a show of hands? How many students, or maybe if there are parents in the group right now, how many have students at home or are a student or is a student, sorry, who is doing O levels? And how many students are currently doing PSLE? Please let me know so I roughly have an idea. All right. Okay. While we wait for some comments to roll in, all right, or maybe even if you're working, okay, that's okay. We're waiting for some comments to roll in. Okay. Do take a look at our brochures. All right. First, we will be going through our PSLE English. Okay. Okay, this is a PSLE English Model Compo ebook. Okay, now I do want to highlight that this is an ebook. Okay, so if students do want a hard copy, you guys can have the option of printing it out yourselves. Okay, now this ebook is currently $29.90. I know that some people at this point might be, oh my god, that's a lot of money for an ebook. For them to only sell us a few pages of like content, but that is not the case. Okay, I can tell you guys here that that's not the case. This is actually quite a thick ebook, and yeah, okay, and there is little to no filler pages, okay, and you guys can do the calculation by yourself a bit later. I'll be showing you guys some of our content as well as our contents page, and I think you guys will have a pretty good understanding of why I'm saying that there is no filler pages. All right, so definitely do stay with me, and yeah. All right. Now, this is a brand new series of 25 PSLE model compositions, and these are specially written to tackle challenging top school exam questions. Okay, so now every model composition is crafted with a unique twist and a realistic story plot. Okay, now when I say realistic story plot, I mean based on true events and news. Okay, so definitely a lot of team specific work. Okay, when I say team specific, there for parents or students who are unaware that there are certain teams in PSLE, certain common topics, okay? And the thing about being written on true events or news, these are more centered towards certain teams, right? Now, a vocab list is attached to every model composition for students to beef up your model composition and your vocab bank, okay? So now the great thing about a vocab list being attached to a model composition is that number one, it is going to be topic specific, meaning that the vocab list you're getting, you essentially have a summary of phrases that can be used for this specific topic, okay, and you're able to use it for your own composition when you're doing your exam. And of course, number two, vocab bank. Now, we always tell our students it is so important for you to make a vocab bank before your exam, okay? But however, some students do struggle with that, and that's completely understandable and that's completely normal, okay? Now, one of the best things about having this vocab list is that you're able to consolidate and put them together and get your own very own vocab bank, okay? That is something that's absolutely great about the vocab list, okay? We really do want to advocate for students to be um, efficient, to be effective with time management, okay? So this is one of the truly best ways to get that to really achieve that, because students won't have to spend that much time with vocab banks creating that vocab bank, but much rather can actually revise and practice with something and then receive a vocab list that they can use as a vocab bank. Okay, now with that, students are not only saving a lot of time, but they are still achieving the same goal as if they were to spend the same amount of time and create the vocab bank themselves. All right, so definitely super important and super valuable for students who are a bit stretched for time at the moment, because after all, we're only a few months away from PSLE, and let's be fair, May is over. Okay. I know some people might say, yeah, there's 2 days left. It's not over. It's over. All right. May is over. Today's the 28th. Um, yeah, we have 2 days left and it's June. Okay. June holidays are gonna start, then you're gonna have July, and then everything else is gonna roll in. Okay. It's stressful. I'm not here to add any more stress. I'm just saying, okay, it is super important for students to have that strong time management, to be able to structure their work into the right frame. Okay, to be able to not get burned out. Okay, these are all things that can really make or break a student at this moment. Okay, if you we the last thing we want is for students to burn out right before the exam. Okay, we really just we want our best. We want the best for all students. Okay, all right. Again, I'm gonna show you guys this. Okay, now you guys will notice that there is a QR code at every single page. Okay, you will be fully able to make that purchase via the QR code. Okay, you guys can choose whether you guys want to purchase it here, or you guys can study out the rest of our selection at Podia. Okay, you can go onto our website, you can search register work Podia, and you will be able to find our whole selection, including some bundle deals for those who want more value. Okay, of course, for those who rather the convenience, you guys can always scan the QR code and make the purchase over here. It is 29.90. Okay, and over here we have our contents page. Okay, I'm about to zoom in a bit. But before that, let me talk about what is inside. Okay, now we have 25 compositions and meaning 25 chapters. Okay, now when it comes to these chapters, what students will receive in each of them is one model composition per chapter plus one vocab list. Okay, and the vocab list is going to be tailored to the model composition. It's essentially a summary. Okay, now for those students who are interested in how they can use this model composition, okay, or how they can use it to study, how they can use the vocab list to study, please stay online. Please stay with me here. Okay, because later I will be doing an annotation of our this model composition, so you can see exactly what you can do when it comes to after you've purchased this resource. Okay, for those who have already purchased the resource, I will be going through one from this book, so you can always sit with me through this and work through it. All right, so yeah, definitely you can do that. All right. All right, now I'm gonna zoom in and let students have a chance to look at it themselves. Okay. Okay, now those who've already taken a look, I'm gonna explain. Okay, so now the reason why I said that there was barely any filler pages is because if you guys were to take a look, each chapter is roughly 3 pages long. Okay, now when I say 3 pages, like I mentioned before, the content inside is one model composition and one vocab list. Okay, now when it comes to this, the model composition itself will be around 1 to 2 pages long, and the vocab list 1 to 2 pages long. Okay, now in this case, you can see this 3 pages is consistent throughout, so there's really little room for filler pages, and from there we can actually tell there's little to, in fact, no filler pages in this booklet. Okay, so this $30, this 29.90, is actually not a small booklet. Okay, you can see from the page numbers that it is actually quite a thick book, in fact. Okay, so it should last students to the end of their PSLE journey. Okay, it will truly help students. If students were to spam this or to really cram, okay, I don't really recommend that. But if they were to do that, That is really enough content for them to finish your revision before PSLE. All right. And okay, now for format, I do want to show students format just so to make sure you guys understand what you guys are purchasing. Okay, so if you guys were to look over here with me, okay, we're going to go through Dumb and Dumber. Roughly in terms of format, you guys can see that we have bolded words when it comes to sophisticated words or effective wording. Okay, ecstasy charged through my veins, beyond a shadow of doubt, precariously bite me in the back. Okay, these are all things. Okay, it's not the full composition over here, it's just a snippet, mind you, it's not so short. Okay, the actual one is quite a bit longer, as well as the vocab bank. All right, yeah, so you can take a look. This will be the format of our vocab bank and vocab list. You can see over here that this will be something like this. All right, so you guys can take a look. If this is something that you would be interested in, again, the QR code is right here. You can make the purchase at any moment of time. Okay, but if you're also more interested in making that purchase on Podia along with some other books, do take a look at our cover page. Okay, the cover page is the yellow book over here, so you guys can always reference the cover page and make the purchase directly on Podia. All right, so do let me know. Okay, now we will come back to this PSLE booklet and go through some content. We will annotate it together, and students will have the chance to see what they can do if they were to study it by themselves, or what they can do if they were to purchase this Podia booklet. Okay, but of course we have our O-level booklet. Okay, we understand not only PSLE is coming up, O-levels is coming up. Okay, I understand the stress, completely understand the stress. Okay, it is again one of the more stressful times of a student's life. Okay, and unfortunately it is something we all have to go through. Okay, so we can do at Writers at Work is wish all students the best and help them as much as we can. All right, so over here you can see this is the O-level model essay book. It's 2690. Okay, you guys can take a look over here. This is the cover page for those who want to rather purchase it on Podia directly. Again, you guys can make the purchase directly, Writers at Work, Podia. Okay, so you guys can look at our selection of books. We actually have a huge section. Okay, now when it comes to our ebooks, I'm only going through two today, but I will go through more soon enough. Okay, if there are any in particular that you guys would like more detail on, or you would rather have someone go through it with you, you guys can always type in the comments, and I will prepare and help you and go through it with you guys within the next 2 days. All right, but over here, we have the QR code. You guys can see it's 2690. Okay, for those who would rather the convenience, you guys can make the purchase here directly. You guys can scan the QR code, and yeah, you guys can make the purchase right now and join me later as I go through and annotate. All right. For students' reference, I will be going through the PSLE model essay. I'll be going through the compo that says actions speak louder than words. I'll be going through that one. Okay, so students who are interested, you guys can make the purchase for the PSLE ebook. It's not this QR code, it's the other QR code. You guys can make the purchase when I scroll back in a bit, and then we can go through it together. Okay. However, if you are an O-level student, I will also be reading the O-level essay. I'll be reading one of them with everyone today. Okay. However, I won't be annotating it in much detail because of the time constraint that we have. All right, so do let me know if anyone has any questions. Okay, but of course, if I'm not able to answer your questions, or if I happen to overlook your questions, feel free to WhatsApp the number above. You guys can see it's 8404-9281, or you guys can type in the comments section or the service button below. Okay, you guys can see the service button here. It's the orange button with the white arrow. Okay, yeah, you guys can always make that purchase and let us know in any of these three forms if you have any issues. All right. Okay, now let's talk about the contents page of the O-level book, okay? Because I know that it is so important for students, for parents, for anyone who's making the purchase to truly understand what they're making the purchase of, okay? We won't blindly make a purchase, that's understandable, all right? Now, we over here, I do want to highlight that this is targeted preparation, meaning that our ebooks is from 2016 to 2022 O level, this particular ebook. All right. Now we have a comprehensive question analysis. Okay, I'll go through it in a bit. Okay, it's in the next page. Okay, essentially what it is that there is a breakdown for the question, and it essentially trains students to be able to instinctively break down questions themselves. All right. We also have effective learning strategies where students are able to get exposed to new learning strategy with each chapter. Okay, so it includes exam preparation and language mechanics. Okay, I will give you guys a bit of a funny backstory about myself. Okay, it's only funny in hindsight. There was nothing funny about it previously. Okay, because it was just stressful. I remember how it felt like being in O levels, how it felt like being in JC. Okay, it is still so stressful to think about, and yeah, definitely, even now that I'm working, it really does not feel any. I believe that I would still be stressed if I had to take O levels or redo JC right now. So definitely, it is not something that I want to think about. But yes, to my point is essentially that we understand where you're coming from, and yeah, we are there to help. Right. Also, for this book, we have topic specific language where students can essentially build and learn how to use superior vocab when writing O level essays. Okay. Now, when it comes to vocab and topic specific language, it is so important and it's not highlighted enough that vocab can truly make or break your speech. Okay, your communication, your delivery. Okay, it is something that really impacts the way people see you. Now, what do I mean by that? Strong vocab, sophisticated use of vocab can make your story or whatever you're saying sound more engaging. It makes you as a person look more engaging. It makes you as a person seem more informative, like you guys know what you're speaking about. Okay, it makes sure that everyone feels like you are knowledgeable in your field. Okay, it is something that can really change the way people look at you. Okay, now when it comes to students who are misusing certain words, certain vocab phrases, or overusing it, it can make your speech, it can make your delivery too chunky and overly deliberate. Okay, at the point of time, it can be counterproductive where people feel like you're trying too hard, or just make you look like someone who very foolish essentially if you're not able to use it accurately. Okay, so again, accuracy and the correct balance and use of vocab is super important when it comes to O-level essays and even PSLE essays or any stage of life. Okay, so again, it is something for students to truly focus on, because my question is always to my audience: would you rather listen to someone who's using super topic specific language in their field, or someone who's using very rudimentary language that almost everyone can understand but does not truly engage anyone? Okay, it will always be the first. You will always rather listen to someone who sounds more knowledgeable in their field because it makes them look more professional. Okay, and this is essentially what we're trying to build in our students. All right, now let's look at the contents page together. Okay, you guys can take a look at the contents page. Okay, I'm going to read out 3 different questions so that you're able to understand the variation that we have in our content, in our book. Okay, question 1: some people enjoy being in crowded places while others prefer somewhere quieter with fewer people. Describe your perfect place where you want to relax. Okay, so this is very straightforward. We can see from this question that what is required from us is a description. Maybe a very beautiful description. They want you to paint a perfect picture. Maybe it can be a childhood place that you had a lot of fond memories in, or it can be a very quiet park where you just feel at the utmost peace at, or somewhere that yeah, anywhere in fact. All right. Question 2: I realized I was much stronger than I previously thought. Write about a time when you felt like this. Okay, now this question is clearly a narrative. We can see that from the second part of this question. Write about a time when you felt like this. Okay, so a specific time, a specific event. So it's definitely a narrative. Okay, they want you to not just describe the place, they want you to describe a plot line, what happened. All right. Then we have 2 words. This one requires a bit more breakdown. I realize. Okay, the word realize and previously does shed some light on what this kind of question wants. When you say realize, it means that there is something where there was time where you perceive something in a certain way but realize that it was not. Okay, So there is that contrast, and that contrast is consistent with the word previously, because it does highlight that there is a certain change. Maybe previously you thought that you were a very weak person, or and now you think you're stronger, or at some point you thought that you were super strong, and now you think you're even stronger. Okay, now there are definitely a lot of ways to see this. Okay, and then we also have the word stronger. Now strength in itself can be defined in many different ways, and that is what makes this question complicated. Now, strength can be seen to be a mental strength. That means maybe perhaps you went through something super traumatic, but you were resilient, and now you became even more resilient as a person. You have stronger qualities as a person. Or let's say, strength in terms of physical strength. You lift the weights every single day, and now you're able to lift twice your weight. Okay, now I'm no bodybuilder, but I know that that is an incredible change. Okay, so definitely, there are a lot of different ways. Or strength could also mean something even more abstract. Okay, so that is completely up to you. Just remember to define that in your composition. All right. Now we have question three. Young people spend so much time thinking about the future that they forgot to enjoy the present. How far do you agree? Okay. Now from the words, how far do you agree? I think it is pretty obvious that it requires you to do some sort of argumentative essay or some kind of debate. To what extent do you agree? Maybe to a big extent, maybe to a small extent, maybe you absolutely don't agree, or maybe you absolutely do agree. Okay, there are so many different ways to answer, but there is a very specific structure that is required of students. All right, so again, these are three completely different question types. So it really does highlight that in our booklet, we are not just repeating one question type and filling our booklet with that. It is truly not the case. We are really trying to put in as many question types as we can. We want to make our students well-rounders, all right? So definitely, when is Yahweh going to go live? Yahweh has some fans here. Okay, now could we check?
His life was over this morning.
Oh, Yahweh did a live this morning. Yahweh did a live this morning. Oh, unfortunately, he already did a live. When will his next live be? Okay, moderator will check for you, Bunny. All right. But yes.
Tomorrow 5:30.
Okay, tomorrow 5:30. Okay, so after mine. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, okay. Yes, definitely. I'm Miffy. Oh, Miffy. Okay, never mind. That makes so much more sense than calling you Bunny. All right, Miffy. That is super cute. That is such a cute name. I cannot tell. Is that your actual name, or is it like a username that you made up? I always struggle with making up TikTok usernames. I absolutely cannot, whether it's for a spam account or anything. I just cannot. But Miffy is such a cute name. It's no, it has such like a, what is the word? Like there is that one aesthetic where people are dressed in bows and corsets. Oh, Meili. Wait, that is such a that's an incredibly pretty name. That is crazy. But that is quite an unconventional name though. That is quite been I've never heard someone called, is Meili your first name, or like, is Meili your first name, or is May your first name and Lee your last name? Okay, I'm trying to understand. Oh, May is your first name. Oh, okay, okay. I was like May Lee. Okay, May Lee. Okay, I guess that's a little bit more conventional, but that's still so pretty. You have so many username options, please. There are certain people with names that, oh, Melee all together. Wait, that is so cool. Wait, that's so cool. I've never heard of someone with this name. And that is so cool. That's so cool. Some people have such a hard time finding usernames because their names are either too conventional, or is this secondary school? Yes, we are currently going through the model composition ebook for the secondary school, but I am so taken by Meili's name. I have never heard a name like that before. I think in schools it's so common for teachers to just call out names, and you hear like three of the same names in the same class, but I've never heard that name before. Jess, mom, are you looking for anything in particular? Maylee, are you in primary school or secondary school? Because I am currently going through content, so you guys can feel free to let me know if there's anything in particular you would like to see. Okay. Okay. I have. Oh, wait, really? Oh, I see. You're in sex school. Okay. I'm currently going through sex school as well, so that's great. I'll be reading a composition, so yeah. Just mom, is there anything you would like? Anything I can help you with? Anything you would like me to go through in particular? Oh, thank you, Jess mom. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You must be too. I believe that. All right. Is there anything that I can help you with in particular? Like me going through some content, okay? Okay, because I will be going through the PSLE content today. I have it scheduled. But if you let me know if there's anything you have in mind or anything, any questions you have, I can definitely prep and you can join our live tomorrow or something, and it will be there. My name is that makes a lot more sense. Oh, that makes wow, but that is still a very interesting name. That's very interesting. But definitely it is I think I would say it is more interesting to have a very unconventional name because can you imagine if you were let's say graduate and people would like mention your name and everyone's like, oh, there is one Meili, but then there is 1,000 like Sophies or 1,000 what other names, Amelias. I don't know what other conventional names are there, but you get what I mean. You get what I mean. So it's so I think it's so special. It's so special. You have to thank your parents for that cool name. Super special. All right. Okay, now definitely let's go back. Okay, no, we're not gonna finish our content on time today. We have so much content. All right. Yeah. Okay. So over here, you guys can definitely see we have a lot of different variations in our questions. So you guys can take a look. Okay. Okay. Now I'm gonna swipe to our format. Okay, so you can roughly see that this is how the format is gonna look like in the ebook. Okay. Now with this format, this we will start with the question. Okay, so we usually just go through the question so you guys can see what kind of question is required of the students. Okay, over here, then my favorite two parts are the essay question analysis and the study tips. Okay, I've said to students before that it is so important for students to be able to break down a question. Okay, no matter how well you can answer a question, if you are not understanding what a question requires of you, you're not going to be able to do well. Okay, so oh, your name's the most. Wait, what are your siblings' names? I feel like if your parents are creative to have like to give you a cool name, your siblings' names shouldn't be far off either. Okay, but unless your siblings' name is like John or something, then I'm going to seriously consider retracting my statement. Oh, oh, okay. Okay. I feel like okay, the first one's a bit more conventional. Megan is quite conventional, I would say that. But it's definitely going around the M scheme. Marvis. Ooh. Your parents are very creative people. I've heard of Marvis before. Okay, I've heard of Marvis before. Um, Meili. Oh, I no. Yours sounds the best. Okay, Marson. Marvis. Oh, Marvis. Okay, my bad. Okay, Marson. Oh, so it's really. Okay. I understand. I understand. I see the pattern. I see the vision. Okay. That is super interesting. Ooh, because I've had classmates called Megan. I've seen students called Megan, but I've never had a classmate or a student called Marvis, Maylee, or Marson. That is so interesting. Your parents are very creative people. I give them that. All right, let's Mavis. Oh, I see. That is so interesting. That is so interesting. But I really just love having like just seeing very like interesting names. Okay, um, names like I don't know. Mainly sounds like a Disney name. It sounds like such a Disney name because it reminds me of that. There's this one character called what's her name? Esmeralda. I always remember that name, Esmeralda, as one of the Disney characters. It gives the same kind of vibe. It's the same kind of vibe. I love that for you. You're you have so many username options. All right. Okay. Ooh. Okay. Essay question analysis. Okay, let's get back. Let's get back. I can't find one called Melee. You have so many options. You can just write the word Melee, and that can be your username because of how unique it is. That is great for you. All right. Okay. Essay question genre, narrative essay. Okay, so we follow a 3 point breakdown when it comes to this kind of paper. Okay, uh, so it is so incredibly important for students to be able to not only understand this but to be able to do it instinctively. Okay, and that's why having so many chapters is so important because in this case, students after let's say finishing all the chapters, by the time they are actually in the exam themselves, they should be able to break it down themselves in their head instinctively. Okay, and that is the final boss. That is the level that we want students to achieve. Okay, we want students to be able to see the question and immediately think, okay, 3 points, what do I have to do? Okay, and now I'm going to go through the 3 points for students who are, I see a lot of students like Jess Mom and Meili, you guys are in secondary school. Um, or maybe Jess Mom, you are the mom of Jess. I don't know if that is just a username. I don't know. But so definitely it is this is so important for you guys, okay? And even if you guys are not looking to purchase, you guys should definitely stay to hear this, okay? Because this is something that is I wish that I heard this when I was in O level. I wish that I heard this when I was in JC, okay? But I didn't, so it's my loss. All right. Um okay, 3 points. Ask a question genre. Always ask yourself, what genre is this? And in this case, it is a narrative essay, okay? That really changes the way you think about the essay. It changes the way you're about to plan your essay. These things all are super, super important, all right? Keywords to know. Okay, this is super important. Okay, now this question is picked because now look at this question. Okay, there are so many different ways that you can approach it. When it comes to strength, you can write it as physical strength. I lifted weights every single day. I am able to lift twice my weight right now. All right. Or, I went through something super traumatic and now I am exceptionally resilient when it comes to dealing with issues. I am persistent. I'm responsible. Okay. These are all things that you can write about. Okay, now over here, they also listed out for you realized an event that caused you to revoke the presumption you had of yourself. Okay, so you can actually see this from the words previously, from the words realized. It all hints at a contrast. Okay, there is something that happened previously that made you change your mind. Okay, so there's a now and then comparison. Realized again a now and then comparison. What do you previously think and what do you think now? Okay, again contrast. Okay, now stronger could be physically or mentally. Okay, now point three is where you put number one and two together and actually break down and get that complete guideline. Okay, nobody's going to give you that guideline in the exam, unfortunately. Nobody's going to give you that guideline during the exam. You have to come up with the guideline yourself. Okay, and you cannot spend too much time in it. I remember I was such a victim of spending too much time on my planning and it just backfired majorly. Okay, because I planned the most beautiful compositions, except that that was all in my mind because I would not be able to finish it on time. Okay, and that was super stressful for me as a person, okay, as a student and as someone who was about to take an exam. Okay, so this is definitely something you guys have to work on, or yeah. Three, you can talk about why you had self doubts about your capability and then explain in detail one particular situation that aided in regaining your confidence in strength. Okay, since strength can be either physical or mental strength, it would be good to cover both in your essay. Okay, now when it comes to this, it really gives you that step by step breakdown. Okay, and what's so great about this, what's so additionally great about this, is that when you are doing your exam, after let's say you have done 10 chapters of this, 3 chapters of this, you are able to internalize, you're able to have it in your brain that you are able to instinctively, upon looking at the paper, understand what is required of you and, have it all play out in your mind. You don't need there to be, you don't need to have it broken down for you anymore. Okay, and that's what's so important. All right. Now we have over here, oh, Mifi joined again. Oh, Maylee joined again. Hi, Maylee. Welcome back. All right. All right. Essay exam study tips. This is one of my ultimate favorites because this is something that I majorly regret as a student, that I did not learn this earlier. Okay, I remember thinking back when I was in JC, if I had realized this earlier, I would have I wouldn't have to go through all this. Okay, as a student, one of my biggest misconceptions is that everyone studies the same. That is not true. Everyone studies differently. Okay, you might see people who are absorbing things at such an intense rate when they're in class, but they don't study at home, but they do well. Okay, it is so important for you to study at home, but at the same time, it makes you think, what do they have that I don't? What are they doing that I'm not doing that, they are able to do so well? We sit through the same classes, but why can they do that and I can't? Okay, now I ask these questions myself, and what I realize is that students have different learning styles. The students who do so well in class, they absorb so quickly in class, learn so well from the whiteboard, but I'm not one of them, and that's okay. I realized very later on in my JC life that I was an auditory and visual learner. Okay, you might think, oh, whiteboard, that's visual, is it not? That is not exactly how it worked for me. For me, I learned super well from audio recordings and from videos. Okay, so if we were learning cell biology, I would learn super well from an animated video of maybe cell division or something like that. All right. Whereas other students learned really well from very individual diagrams on the board. But for me, it was very hard for my brain to actually connect, okay, this happens to this. And it was very hard for me to remember. But in the moment I watched the video of an animation that everything was like a full movie, it made sense to me. Okay. So definitely, these are all study tips. These are all um, exam learning strategies. And these are things that are so important for students to have that exposure to when they are at that age. Okay, it is so easy for students to feel that I'm just not good at studying, which is absolutely not the case. Okay, so it is so important for students to be able to find something that is most suited for them to actually incorporate that into their own learning and do well. Okay, over here, I'm gonna have a short pause, okay, while everyone just thinks about that. And over here, could we play somewhere what do you call that, promo for our ebooks? Okay, so it will help everyone to get a better understanding of what we're doing. Moderator, could we have some promo bits? Moderator, could we have some promo videos
Promo videos.
for our ebook? Thank you.
Mhm.
Nothing came up again.
Hmm?
the error thing come up again. Mm. Is it from TikTok?
Mm. This is the content is not art. It's not original.
Is there a new TikTok regulation that we don't know about?
I don't know. Okay. There's nothing you can do actually.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. Should we restart because the viewers spiked down again, went all the way down. We restart. Okay. Might have to restart the phones outside as well.
Wait, I'll try again.
Mm. Hi everyone. Welcome to our live. Okay, we had some technical issues unfortunately. Okay, but we are back. All right. So over here, I was just talking about space repetition. Okay, I'm sharing more about this learning technique with everyone. Okay, to let us know if there's anything in particular that you like to see. Okay, and I will go through them with you. Right. Okay. Space repetition. Okay, now space repetition is the exam strategy of this particular chapter. Okay, so do take a look. Okay, spaced repetition refers to a method of reviewing material at systematic intervals. Okay, so the more you encounter certain bits of information, the less information you will need to refresh your memory of it. Now, instead of leaving all of your revision to the last minute, just 30 minutes of revision every day for long periods of time will help you to retain memory much more easily. Okay, now so it's essentially consistently testing yourself to make sure you are remembering things, making sure that making sure that your brain is always up to date with the information and it's not forgetting anything too fast. All right. So these are all things that are super important. All right. Review your notes. Okay, this is how to practice spaced repetition. Review your notes, okay? So within 20 to 24 hours of initial intake of information, review them again for short-term retention, okay? So when you reveal the content, you want to read them and then look away and try to recall the important parts, okay? Now, recall. After a day, try recalling the information again, this time without referring to your notes, all right? Recall again. Recall the material every 2 to 3 days over the course of a week. This will then ensure that your brain is constantly refreshed and with the content and committed to long-term memory. Okay, these are all things that can drastically improve your memory and retention of the specific notes that you're maybe you're going for an exam with. Okay, so again, this is a very beneficial method. Okay, it is definitely something for people who are struggling with memories. Okay, definitely there are a lot of other ways. Okay, but this is just one of the way that we are adding to our ebook this time. Okay, so definitely you guys can take a look. Okay, this ebook is great in this aspect because it really does give students this early exposure to this kind of exam strategies. Okay, this is something that I wish that I personally had earlier on. Okay, I would have realized a lot of things a lot earlier, and yeah, this is something that truly elevates your studying. It is super important. All right. Okay. Now, this is the format that we are roughly looking at. So after the exam, the essay question analysis and the essay exam study tips, we have the model composition. Okay, so this is just a snippet over here. Okay, so I will be reading it in full later. Okay, so this is not the full composition. You guys see that's why it looks a bit short. Okay, but you guys can take a look. Okay, but if this is the moment where you feel like this is the book for me, this is the ebook that I need to do well, then the QR code is right here for your purchase. Okay, we have it on Podia as well. So if you feel like Podia might be the best choice for you, okay, you can always reference this cover page you guys see above here. It is the green book. You guys can make that purchase on Podia. Do note that we also have bundle sales if you're looking for something of a bit more value or if you're looking to make other purchases at the same time. All right. Okay, again, this booklet is 26.90. Okay, you can buy it online. Okay, it is an ebook. I do want to highlight that. Okay, also this has an attached vocab with topic specific language. Okay, personally that is something that is super valuable because it really does help students to create that content, not that content, the vocab bank. Okay, now when it comes to vocab bank, some students might struggle to make it, especially now that we're only a few months away and you guys are probably thinking that I should spend my time on more practice. Okay, vocab banks are great practice, but if you are short of time, I would say that this is something that's super valuable because you are essentially creating a product. You're essentially purchasing a product that has a vocab bank already inset for you. Okay, so that is definitely something for students who are a bit stretched for time. All right, so you guys can see this over here. Okay, so these are essentially a summary of a strong vocab that are and have been used within your compositions. Okay, and you can use it within your own compositions. And at the end, when you finish this ebook, when you finish doing all the practice, you can put them together and to get your entire vocab bank. Okay, so you're essentially building your own vocab bank, right? All right. Again, here is the cover page. Okay, so this is definitely one of the recommended ebooks that we have here at Writers at Work. It is something recommended by our teachers. Okay, and over here you guys can see it is 26.90. It is an O-level model essay completion. Over here you guys can also see we have the QR code. You can scan it directly to get yours. Right. Okay. Now, before I go on to annotate the PSLE model composition and read what we have for the O levels, do take a look over here. This is our PSLE models composition cover page. Okay, so for those who have been waiting for this is the cover page. You guys can make that purchase online on Podia with reference to this, or you guys could scan the QR code and make the purchase directly. Okay, so just give you guys a look again. All right, I will now be moving on and reading the O level English essay really, really quickly, and then moving on to finish the PSLE English annotation. All right. All right. Okay, let's take a look. Please, everyone, join me in taking a look. Okay, so we've done some previous annotations. I am going to erase that. So we are starting on a fresh page. Okay. You guys take a look. Okay, let's take a look. Okay. I realized that I was much stronger than I previously thought, right about a time when you felt like this. Okay, so let's begin. Self doubt, fear of failure. These two were like Bonnie and Clyde, partners in crime, working hand in hand when it came to demolishing my courage and taking part in competitions. The humiliating defeat on my very first ice skating competition haunted me, but one bad experience shall not cripple my fighting spirit to become a competitive figure skater. It was a moment of epiphany that made me realize that I was much stronger than I had previously thought. Okay, so we're gonna read this entirely and then we will annotate it. All right. Looking back, my first figure skating competition was the catalyst of my downfall, and I had wallowed in self pity for the longest time. It was a small zone competition, but there were live spectators seated all around the small skating ring in Jurong, and my friends were doing a live stream to share with my other classmates who could not be there with us. I was brimming with confidence, and I felt the strength in my legs when I put on the skating shoes to get ready for my turn to compete. This is gonna be a breeze, I muttered under my breath as I recalled the short months of training leading up to this moment. Little did I know the sense of complacency would soon set me down an abyss of humiliating defeat. Stepping into the ring, I shot my classmates a smirk that was clouded in an air of confidence. My step sequence was choreographed by both me and my coach, and I knew it like the back of my hand. When I got into the surface onto the ring, I let my muscle memory take the stage as I started to skate to the classical music. I had heard the song time and time again, and the familiarity emanated a sense of certainty and conviction. But before I could even complete my jump sequence, I lost balance and fell. My world went in slow motion, and my limp body plummeted into the cold and harsh embrace of the ice. The spectators stopped cheering, and my world too had stopped in that very moment. What became of that day remained a blur to me. The mixed image of red flashing ambulance lights as well as my coach's and parents' face of worry before I blacked out. The failed jump sequence did not leave any permanent physical damage. I hit the sides of my face and the wound healed beautifully. However, I was mentally and emotionally scarred by my very public failure, and all I could see in the mental image of myself was tinged with disappointment and embarrassment. I concurred that everyone was mocking me and that I was simply an embodiment of defeat. All these fears materialized on my physique, and I was certain that there was absolutely no strength in my legs. The very same pair of legs that stood strong in skating shoes, the very same pair of legs that I believed could execute the jump sequence. Perhaps I was just not as strong as I had imagined myself to be. I developed an intense fear of and dread towards competitive skating scene and all forms of competition. I'd given up, but my coach had not. After my recovery, I repudiated my coach's relentless pleas for me to try skating again because my big fall had abolished any form of dignity and self-respect I formerly possessed. Then one day, I received a text message from my coach, and it was accompanied by a short video. I absentmindedly clicked on the video, and it was a clip of my very first competition. The scenes of me skating in that pristine white ice rink. My coach's voice echoed in the background of the video as he analyzed my every move. You were great at the start, but take a close look at your stance before you did the jump. There's a misalignment in your. My heart thumped against my ribcage as I watched the video with bated breath. I listened to my coach's words as he broke down what we could do to improve all the moves. When the video ended, I broke down and cried because I realized I really missed skating. I missed being on the ice and gliding across the expanse of the ice rink. I dried my tears resolutely and put my fists together. I decided it was time. Time for me to try again. This round, I devoted my heart and soul into the training, pouring in blood, sweat, and tears in every training session. I fell countless times during the training. There were pain and tears shed, but no strength lost. In fact, with every vigorous training, I felt myself growing stronger and stronger, and I realized I was much stronger than I previously thought. The day of the competition had finally arrived, and the tidal waves of anxiety and stress started too as I waited for my turn on the rink. The lacing of my skates felt stifling tight, just as how my chest was tight with anxiety. Like a snap to attention, I heard my name blaring from the speakers, echoing across the arena. This was it. This was my time to shine. I got onto the rink and vowed to give it my all. The soreness in my core, anxiety in my chest, and all my self doubt melted away as I devoted my entirety into my jump sequences. My momentum accumulated at the peak of the music that accompanied my routine, and I executed every jump and spin to loud applause. My choreographed routine ended as quickly as it had begun. I glided across the ring gracefully as a swan with an aura of confidence and pride. I did it. It was surreal, but I did it. I'm thankful that I realized I was much stronger than I previously thought. Okay, I'm gonna annotate this really quickly. We just finished. All right, so you guys have read this composition with me. We are going to look through it together now, especially what makes it a good composition. Okay, for those who know the answer to that question, who those who have an opinion, who thinks that there's a reason why this composition is super good, super effective, you guys can type it in the comments, and we'll look through it together. All right. Okay. Now, I do want to highlight two things first. Three, actually. Stronger, strength, and realization, as well as previously. Okay. Now, these are things that actually form guidelines around our composition. When you say I realized, you're saying essentially that there's a contrast slash change. That means you previously did not think some way, but now you do. Okay, and previously suggests that there's a change in state. Okay, so previously there was one state and now there is another. Okay. Okay. And when you say stronger, it can mean that you're physically stronger or mentally stronger. Okay. When it came to demolishing my courage and taking part in competitions. Okay. So when you're saying that someone demolished my courage, okay, so it does give us an idea that this is something that's more chaotic. Okay. Okay, so this is already giving us a bit of foreshadowing that this is the event that changed her. All right. So the thing about a good introduction can also be a form of summary. Okay. And it's saying definitively one bad experience shall not cripple my fighting spirit. Okay. So over here, we're very um, obviously suggesting that her fighting spirit is the definition of, ooh, out of space. Definition of strength. Okay. It was a moment of epiphany that made me realize that I was much stronger than I previously thought. Okay, so we're linking the question. Okay, so it's the main introduction that I want to put emphasis on. The other should be quite quick. All right. Okay. Bring your confidence. Okay. Again, foreshadow. Okay. So it does highlight that this is a bit of trauma. Okay. So I don't want to put emphasis on this. Mentally and emotionally scarred. Okay. So it really does highlight that there is that certain change. Okay. There is that change from the fact that she believed that she had strength to the point where she felt like she had no strength, to the point where she felt like she had a lot of strength. Okay, so definitely a change. Okay, I want to put an emphasis onto the last two paragraphs because over here you guys can see that there is a link back twice. I realized that I was much stronger than I previously thought. Felt myself growing stronger and stronger. And okay, so this is the main point. We're not going to go through in too much detail, okay, because our emphasis today is on a PSLE 1. This is secondary school 1. I'm going to go, this is just super quick, okay. So over here, so you can definitely see that it manifests in both a physical plus emotional way. So definitely it could be one or the other. All right. Okay. This is our secondary school essay. So I'm going to talk about 2 minutes about why I think it's a good essay. Okay. Now, firstly, from all that we've gone through, okay, you guys can see that it has quite a bit of link backs to the question. And that is something that is so important whether or not you're writing your PSLE essay or your secondary school essay, is that you're linking back to the question, okay? No matter which paragraph you're working on, especially your climax, if you were to link it to your question, you should always be able to ask yourself, is this relevant to my question? And you should always be able to answer yes, especially at your climax. Okay, so the fact that this author is directly quoting the question multiple times is a great way to link the question. However, it is so important to be careful not to do this too many times. If not, you can end up sounding repetitive, right? There is a massive difference between sounding repetitive and sounding relevant. Okay, relevance does not have to be repetitive. It can be approaching the same thing from different angles. It does not have to be approaching the same thing in different forms. Okay, so it's definitely super important to notice this. Okay, and again, another point about what makes this so good as a composition is that the progress is stable. Okay, when I say the progress is stable, is that there's a clear transition between there's a clear transition. Okay, the main transition that we want in this composition, as you can see from the question, is the transition from a point where she felt like she was not strong enough to the point where she is stronger. Okay, there is that very clear transition, and even a transition from the fact that she thought she was strong to the point where she thought she was not strong, and then finally to the point where she knew that she was extremely strong. Okay, so these are things that are super important and just simply has to be clear cut in a composition. Okay, it is really not something that can have a give and take. There has to be a balance between her descriptions, her relevance to the story, her progress, as well as how clear cut the way her story is flowing. Okay, these are all things that can that determine how well your composition is going to score. All right, definitely do take note. All right. Okay, let's move on to our PSLE composition real quick. I don't think we will have much time because we have 10 minutes left. Okay, but I do want to give a quick read to it. Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna leave the annotations there. Okay, because we're running a bit out of time. Okay, so guys, just bear with me for a bit more. Okay. Okay, progress versus detail. Okay, this is something that I definitely want to talk about, and it's something that you can definitely take away from all our PSLE compositions, our secondary school compositions. Okay, it is up to you to annotate. Okay, I do want to highlight that when you do purchase this book, they won't have this kind of annotations. I am just showing students and audience that this is one very, very important and very good way that you can use your model compositions. Okay, definitely don't just read it. It is not for leisure reading, and leisure reading can only benefit you so much. Okay, it is so important that you are reading intentionally, and when I say intentionally, you are holding a highlighter or a pen and you're highlighting things that you do really, really love about a composition, or things that you think that you want to add to your own composition. Okay, these are things that can truly improve your composition, because when you highlight, you're actively learning, as compared to when you're leisurely reading, you are processing the information and then spitting it out. Okay, so it's so important for students to understand that point. All right, okay, I'm gonna read this really quickly. Oh, progress in detail, forgot to talk about that. All right, progress in detail. Now it is something that really adds value to a composition. Now what do I mean by that? Okay, these two things, progress and detail, cannot be imbalanced. Too much progress makes your story look very bland, because you're simply moving forward, but you're not adding any flavoring to it. Okay, you are adding all the necessary ingredients, but there's no flavor to it. Okay, you are moving a story along, but you're not painting a picture. Okay, and that is where you start getting comments from your teacher like show not tell. You start getting comments from your teacher like more detail, elaborate. Okay, these are the too much progress is the reason for that. All right, then you have detail. Okay, detail alone will make your story look very chunky, because your story is not moving on, it's staying at one spot. And you can imagine, when something accumulates at one spot for too long, it begins to look chunky no matter what it is. And it's the same for a composition, all right? So it's super important for you to have that balance between progress and detail. Now, I have highlighted the students that certain paragraphs are more prone to either element. So certain paragraphs, typically the introduction, they are super prone to having more detail, and that's okay. You don't have to be completely balanced throughout all paragraphs. You just have to be more balanced when you can. All right. When it comes to your introduction, more detail is necessary, because you are starting a scene. You're painting a scene. You're giving context. Okay. However, it is so important that your introduction should not be half a page long. It should not be that long. Okay, half a page is way too much. Okay, and I'm saying it as someone who used to write half a page of introduction. Okay, it is way too long. You're spending too much time and you're not moving into your story. All right. Of course, there are also some times where detail, where progress is an element that is more prominent in your story, and that is in your rising action. Okay, in your rising action, you are transitioning from um, your introduction to your climax. Everything has started. Everything is very fast paced, so it's very, very common for students to be writing a bit more action at the time. Okay, and that's okay. Okay, just not completely just action. You have to have some detail. Okay, so it's okay. Okay, so I do want to highlight, okay, you guys can see blue is progress and yellow is detail. So you can really see the difference. There's a bit more yellow than blue in your first paragraph, and a lot more blue than yellow in your second paragraph. Okay, the second paragraph is your rising action, and the first paragraph is your introduction. Okay, so do note that down. It's a very, very important point. Okay, we might not have time to annotate the composition today, so I will just talk about it as it is, so everyone can have a better idea of what I'm talking about. All right. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, now the last point that one of the last points that I want to make is linking back to the story. Okay, we talked about that in the O-level essay, but I'm going to talk about it in context of the PSLE essay now. Okay, so the content over here, the title is Actions Speak Louder Than Words. I do want to link it back all the way to, okay, here we go, this paragraph. However, the door remained shut even when our parents attempted to mediate. I know I had to do something to show the sincerity in my apology. This time, mere words were not going to cut it. Okay, so in this story, the word knife is not explicitly said, but the idea of something being cut has been brought up a lot of times. Okay, this is what we call a motif, and this is something that is more towards the side of literature, but I think it's a great way to explain to students reoccurring themes that can add depth to a story. Okay, now we can understand that a story is, we can make a story more dimensional. We can make it more depth, more variety by adding this kind of wording, this kind of literary devices. Okay, now when you use a motif, essentially you are repeating a theme or an idea, and in this case, you're essentially repeating an idea that um, something has been cut. You can see it as their relationship has been cut, their ties have been cut, or maybe you see that you see over here, you see that Mirabels were not gonna cut it. Okay, and over here you see he, there is the top part that brother says, where the author says that brother wielded the silence, wielded his silence, the deadly silence that he wielded, cutting me deep with every failed apology. So there is definitely something that's being hurt, definitely something that's being cut over here. Okay, so that's the reoccurring theme over here. Okay, but the final point that I want to make is that when you say that when you want to link to your title, a very good way is number one to list it directly, to quote it directly, which is what was done in the O-level essay. In the primary school essay, which is this one, over here it's done more subtly. Okay, it's done more subtly over here. You can see over here. I knew I'd to do something to show the sincerity in my apology. This time your words were not going to cut it. So it does highlight that actions do speak louder than words, and you can see there in the last paragraph of the page, every painstaking brushstroke was an apology given form. Okay, so the idea of given form really shows that you are adding to the fact that words do not have as much power as actions do, so words have to take form, something has to be done. Okay, so this is definitely something that adds depth to the story. All right, so unfortunately we're not going to be able to finish going through this composition. I will go through it more tomorrow, but unfortunately we are at the end of today's life. All right, so I will be back tomorrow to go through this composition with you guys again. All right, so do let me know if there's anything in particular that you guys would like to see, any questions that you guys might have. All right, we will be going through that tomorrow. All right, but for today, thank you everyone for joining the live. Hope you guys have the best rest of the day.